Hi everyone, my name is Bonnie Brzozowski. I'm a reference librarian at the Corvallis-Benton County Public Library, and I'm recording another video from my home, hopefully reaching you at your own home, about misinformation online, this specifically relating to COVID-19. Today I wanted to talk about images and how we would fact check images, as that is a lot of the content that gets shared tends to be images, and they tend to be taken out of context or sometimes provided with misleading context. So let's take a look at an example. So this image here was shared quite a bit, and it was said that this image is in China and that these are coronavirus victims. Something that we can do that's really easy and doesn't require any kind of technology tool is first use our observation skills to ask some questions about images in general. So here's sort of a list of things that we could be looking for and asking ourselves, does this seem consistent with the context being provided about this particular image? So looking at things like the architecture, the landscape, people's clothing, the climate, is the weather consistent with what people are saying about this image? The language on the signs, is that the same as where they're saying this image is? Are landmarks consistent? Business names and phone numbers, do those seem to reveal that this image is perhaps elsewhere? Street signs, names of streets, and license plates could all potentially be revealing. In this particular image, something that stands out is the architecture. The architecture doesn't really appear Chinese or Asian influenced. It seems Western European inspired. So that right there might send up a red flag and say, hey, I'm not sure this is China. That doesn't look like China. So another way that we could look more closely at this image, because sometimes landmarks and other things that I mentioned in the observation list aren't really obvious, is we could use a magnifier to magnify this image and look even more closely at it. One of those is online, and there's a free online magnifier called Forensically. I actually have it pulled up here. You can either save an image and then upload it to Forensically, or you can, actually I believe that's the only way you can do it here. You do have to actually save the file and then open it to look at it on Forensically. And then the example here, you can see the magnification that it's going to give you as you roll over the image. So this is it being magnified. You also have the option to increase or decrease the magnification here. Another way that you can do it if you're a Windows user is use your magnifier app. In fact, that'd be a lot easier for most people if you're using Windows. Go to your Start menu, start typing magnifier. It's going to come up as an option for an app that you can open it up, get it started. It's going to automatically magnify whatever you roll your mouse over. So that can help enhance your observation skills even further. But if you want to go even further, because sometimes we need to, so for example, with this image, we had some questions about the architecture. It doesn't seem consistent. So how could we find out more? How could we actually maybe determine the origin of this image if we wanted to, or even just get some more context about it? Where did it really come from? Ways that you can do that are through reverse image searches usually. That tends to be the first step. The first thing to try would be a reverse image search. And there's a number of different ways you can go about this. The way that I have pictured here on this screen is with a browser extension called RevEye. It's free. It's available to Chrome and Firefox users. And once you have it installed, basically any image that you right-click on in your web browser will provide this reverse image search option. And then you can search all search engines or just specific search engines that you like, because there are a number of different search engines that will run this type of search for you. Most people would just use Google, but you might have a reason to use others as well, or you might just simply prefer to use others. Google is probably going to have, I'm not certain if it would have the largest database, but generally that's where most people would probably start and then move on to others if they aren't getting very far with Google for whatever reason. Just to note that if you're a Chrome browser user, you already have a feature like this ready to go, and you don't need to do anything unless for any reason you just want to use RevEye because it has a few more bells and whistles. If you're using Chrome, right-click on any image online, and then you'll see a link. Rather than reverse image search, the option would be search Google for image, and then that will run your reverse image search. So let's actually take a look and try to run a reverse image search. So as I said, I have RevEye installed, and I am using the Chrome browser. But because I've installed RevEye, it replaces my search this image on Google to reverse image search. And so I can choose which search engine I want it to run the search in, or I can run it in all. I don't want it to open a bunch of windows right now, so I'm just going to run it in Google so we can get a sense of what that looks like. So really interestingly, Google puts the image here, and then it's searched by the image, and then it actually pulled some kind of keywords that were associated with this image, and it pulled coronavirus victims. Those terms could perhaps skew the results we get here, so I may want to change them or just simply remove them, just delete them and hit enter again. But let's see what it looks like with those results, because we still might be able to get somewhat, or with those search terms, let's see what our results look like, because we still might be able to figure out what's going on here with this image. Just a note, the Google reverse image search screen is a little funny because they first show you the image that you searched by. Then they actually run a related search first. So this search here is just for the search, or is just for the words coronavirus victims. So that's why these results are here. These results actually have nothing to do with the image we searched, so we still want to scroll even further down. It also runs visually similar images, a visually similar images search. So here's that there. Again, that's not really what we were looking for. What we are interested in is pages that include this image. So it actually includes a fact-checking article about coronavirus information, and where I actually pulled this image from, which was interesting. So we could read the fact check about this and understand a little bit more about the misleading context that was provided around this image. We would also see that this image was posted as early as 2014. So it definitely couldn't be an image of coronavirus victims if it originated in 2014. This appeared on the New York Post page, The Day in Photos. So even if they don't have this right, they're saying it's Germany pedestrian zone, right? It was, I believe it was an art project to remember Nazi concentration camp victims that happened in Frankfurt, if I remember correctly. But we don't even necessarily need to find that out unless for some reason that's what we wanted to know and that's what interested us. This 2014 year is enough. That shows us right there, this couldn't be coronavirus victims. We could stop right there, we're done. So you see that's a relatively quick way to debunk the context that was provided around this particular photo. So say that you don't have RevEye, you don't want to install it. Say you're not using Chrome browser, so none of these are gonna work for you. That's absolutely fine. You can just go directly to images.google.com, hit the camera icon, and then paste the web address where the image is hosted, or you can actually save and upload the image. Just to give you a sense of that, anytime you want to get the address to a particular image, you're going to want to right click on it and hit copy image address. And then if we jump into Google image search, hit the camera as I mentioned, this is where you're going to get the place to either paste the URL or you can upload the image. So I simply pasted that image I just copied, and then here we go, it ran the search for us. Some people prefer to use other search engines such as Yandex and TinEye. It's absolutely fine, whatever your preference, just so you know that those are options. Something else that you can do with images is try to use geolocating to figure out where the image really was taken. We covered this a little bit in observation, that you can use things like store signs, street signs, anything else that might indicate location. But then in this case, what we could do is we could go to Google Maps or some kind of similar mapping tool online and search for these points of interest and then actually look at the, like, for example, the street view and see if it really matches where they're saying this is supposed to be. So the example here, this is something that the New York Post posted on their Twitter page. It says, first case of coronavirus confirmed in Manhattan. And the image they're using below is of presumably perhaps the first coronavirus case, and that we would assume this image is in Manhattan. However, a state senator from New York tweeted back and said, so New York Post, if this is the first case of coronavirus confirmed in Manhattan, why are you using an image of an Asian man in Queens? So how would that senator have found that out? What she more than likely did is she went to Google Maps and she used these really, really big features. So this man sitting in front of Duane Reade. So we could look up that business name, right? But then we also have the street sign here, and that street, if you can't see it, but like I said, you could have used a magnifier to easily see it, is Main Street. So if we actually go into Google Maps, let me see, I was looking at the library earlier, and we type in Duane Reade, Main Street, New York, what do we get? So the thing that's a little tricky about this is, if going back to the image, this Duane Reade may not actually be on Main Street. It may be up a cross street here, the sign for which we can't see. So we're not actually looking for we may not actually be looking for a Duane Reade on Main. Interestingly, Google is pretty clever, and it figured it out right away for us. So let's see. It's this one here. Highlighted that one there. You can, if you take a look here, you'll realize this is Manhattan. We're not in Manhattan. We're in Queens. So that's probably how she figured that out. Can we be sure this is the right place because it's on Roosevelt? Well, one way we can look at the street view. That's what we've got here in the left corner, and it pulls up that big image for us. And yes, I mean, this looks a lot like what we're looking at here. So more than likely she did something like that and realized, hey, that's not Manhattan. And this is just some guy. It's not the first coronavirus case. Well, I don't know specifically how she figured that out. She may have just simply deduced it. What the New York Post is doing, and what a lot of media outlets are doing, is they're just using some kind of stock photo to go along with their headline. They may not have even necessarily meant for people to assume that this is Manhattan and that this is the first coronavirus victim, perhaps, but they have to realize that people make those connections all the time. We're going to connect the image to the text. So the reason I actually had the library pulled up here is because another interesting thing I want to point out about Google Maps, let's go back to the library here, is that they have a way to look at other points in time when that street view capture was taken. So we're going to the street view. And if you click right here where the little clock is, you can actually see the different times that this street view was captured. So August 2015, August 2016, etc. The reason that might be useful to you is trying to determine when a particular landmark might have changed, when a mural maybe was painted, trying to get a sense of, okay, well, it wasn't there in August 2016, but it does exist in August 2017, so clearly it happened between that time. Sometimes some of the context around the visual might have you asking some questions about, well, what did it look like in 2014? And we can actually go to Street View and see that. So that's kind of a cool feature to note if you've never seen it before. If you want to get really, really pro at geolocation, try the first draft geolocation challenge. It's really challenging. It's a really good exercise for your brain. I highly recommend it to adults, high school students, even older middle school students should try this out. really exercise that part of your brain where you need to really be kind of a professional skeptic when you're online. Always be skeptical, particularly of the visual information that you're seeing, and ask a lot of questions. Sometimes just that level of skepticism and observation can be really helpful in determining what's really going on here, or at least knowing, hey, this is fake. I don't need to share it with anybody. Further preventing the virality of some of this content. Thank you so much for listening. We'll have more to share soon. Take care of yourselves.